This is On Second Thought, episode 260, brought to you by Hook'em.com, our good friends at Bud Light. I'm Cedric Golden, and I'm joined by the Duck, Kirk Bowles. 260 episodes in, and we're still making history, Duck. First time joining us, the
Love it.
preeminent voice of college baseball in America. He is the managing editor of D1Baseball.com, Kendal Rogers, joining us. What's up, man?
You know what? I'm a little offended that it's taken 260 episodes for me to be a guest.
We had trouble going through your ages. That was the
There's a
problem.
waiting,
You're in
there's a waiting
demand.
Yeah.
list. There's a waiting list. Barack Obama's still waiting to get in.
Well,
Putin called too soon. Turned him down for obvious reasons.
well, I'll tell you what. If Putin calls to come on your podcast, then put him in front of me because that's really interesting.
in front of a firing squad. But,
How the heck are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. You know, we're I can't believe it, but we're 3 weeks away now from Selection Monday, and I think the postseason picture right now is as cloudy as ever. I mean, the race for the top 8 seeds is wide open. You can see Texas get back in that mix with a strong finish. The race for top 16 seeds are wide open, and even when you look at the Big 12 right now, I mean, you look at a Texas team that's sitting, 6th place in the Big 12. I don't think they're going to finish there after the Kansas series, but still, I mean, there's some interesting storylines. You look, east of Austin, they're 95 miles in College Station, and Schloss, I don't know how he's done it this year, but I mean, those guys are 2 games out of first in the West, and right now they would host, and so that's been kind of an incredible story, really.
Yeah, it really is.
Can you pull some strings at D1 baseball and get the Longhorns and Aggies?
Oh God, I knew you were going that direction.
You live in College Station. We live
I live in
Austin.
Houston.
I thought you lived in College Station.
Well, I mean, when I was in school, like back when neither one of us had gray hair.
The old days.
What's hair?
Yeah.
What's hair?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't have much hair either, so
Oh,
I don't
wow.
feel too bad. That would be interesting. I mean, to be honest, though, in our projections this week, we have the Horns going to Arkansas, so kind of pick your poison, really.
Saw that today. That would not be good news for Texas. Arkansas is
That's raucous. That is raucous.
Yeah.
I would actually argue that Arkansas would be more hostile than A&M would be.
Think so.
Really?
It was pretty hostile during football season. I saw it up close.
I will say this. I think like A&M dislikes Texas and hates Texas in some regards. I think Arkansas is just like straight up like, we will burn your car in the parking lot. Hey,
I think you're right.
I love it. I'm sorry. I love that.
Yeah.
I do too. It's great.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
go ahead,
what
Sid.
I mean, Texas,
yeah,
if they sweep Kansas next weekend, they finish up at 14-10. Presumably will be 4th or 5th. They move up in the conference. Does that move the needle enough to sneak them into that top 16? Because I think I looked on your RPI, and I believe you have them at 18 right now.
Yeah, so Texas would need to probably win some games in the conference tournament, which is certainly conceivable. But I mean, if you look at Kansas RPI is well in the triple digits. So by just playing Kansas, they're going to go down in the RPI. Like they're not going to go up at all in that Kansas series. So they're going to have to win some games in the Big 12 tournament, which they have done in the past. And so they're going to need to probably win 2 or 3 games if they can do that in the Big 12 tournament, in addition to 14-10 regular season record. Because at that point, your conference tournament games, not in the official kind of standings, but in terms of the committee, those conference tournament games count as conference games. So Texas, let's say Texas went 2-2. They would essentially be 16-12 in the league as opposed to 14-10. So if that makes sense. So, the more conference wins you can accumulate, the better off you are. So I would say if I'm Texas, if you can sweep or take 2 or 3 from Kansas, win 2 to 3 games in Oklahoma City, I think you've got a really good shot.
So you're saying that unlike college basketball, the conference tournaments in college baseball can
factor in
your standing.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you're not going to go beat, kind of like A&M and Arkansas in hoops. You're not going to go beat somebody in the baseball tournament by 15 runs and not make the postseason. But yeah, I mean, baseball definitely matters. I think it's going to matter a lot this year when you look at the national seed picture. So for right now, for instance, we had Arkansas move back as the top 8. We have Auburn sitting in the 8 hole. We have A&M dropping out from 8 to 9. or 7-9, excuse me. And then we have Louisville leaping Notre Dame to get in as the final ACC team. So you're looking at different scenarios there where in Hoover in the SEC tournament, if A&M goes on a long run and Auburn doesn't, or I would say Arkansas is fine, but if Auburn doesn't, then I think you could see A&M take their spot. I think you look at, the Big 12 is a little different because I think Oklahoma State's dead set national seed right now. I mean, they're 3 RPI. They're going to win that league. They're a lock. Yeah. But in the in the Big 12, if a team like Texas, I mean, here's the thing. Like, as crazy as it sounds, if a team like Texas and, let's say A&M and Auburn and some of those teams like that kind of faltered a little bit, if a team like Texas swept this weekend, and let's just say they just roll everybody in the conference tournament, I mean, it's not that crazy from an RPI standpoint to see them sneak in as an 8. I know it sounds insane right now, but the pathway is there. The pathway is extremely difficult, but the pathway is there.
Let me ask you that too. In the past, as we've seen, as you know, Kendall, money plays a factor, and they host regionals. Seem like every year. You remember not too long ago with Houston. Houston had better credentials, and then they got shipped up here for the Super Regional, and Texas won. Do you think money is still a factor in tradition where they're going to pack the house with 7,000 plus? Would that a factor?
I don't think it is as much as you're right. It used to be almost all of it, but I think these days, now that we've shifted in the last 2 or 3 years to the 1 through 16 model, just like softball,
right?
If you're the committee, you really want to get those 16 teams right. You don't want to be in a situation where people are accusing you of, well, that team has money and that's the only reason they're a top 16 team. And so I think you're going to have to earn it. Now, if they are even with a Gonzaga, then I think, wink, wink. Yeah, that plays a part. But I think if their RPI is 24 and Gonzaga's is 17, Gonzaga's getting a top 16 seed.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Texas State, I don't even know if they would be in the running if they've even bid for a regional or not.
I mean, they will not host a regional just because their RPI is low. But I'll tell you what, I've seen them play this year, and I would not want them in my regional. I get it. From a pitching standpoint, it can get a little lean, after the first 2 guys. But I'll tell you what, they've got, 8 seniors in their everyday lineup. They can really hit. And I think Steven does a great job with that team in terms of their approach, their coaching, and things like that. So I do not want to play, if I'm an opposing team, I do not want to play a team with 8 seniors in the everyday lineup.
And you got them going to LSU, I think, as a 2 seed right now.
That'd be scary. I mean, Texas State, if you're looking for a dream matchup, if you're Steven Trout, send me to Baton Rouge, because you're going against a team that LSU, outside of that potent offense, their pitching is a lot like A&M. Well, I mean, actually, A&M is better, but their pitching is in a situation to where their Friday, Saturday, Sunday is a total revolving door. They're basically just Johnny Holstaffing every game at this point. And so, I think Texas State matches up with a team like that really well, as opposed to having to go to Oklahoma State and beat Justin Campbell and then go beat Bryce Osmond, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they could go anywhere, like you said. They're
A&M is an option, which they would match up well with A&M. As long as A&M has to throw Nathan Detmer in the first game, it's anybody's regional after that.
Yeah.
I just thought with Texas, just when they don't host, they rarely come out. I mean, it's been 8 years since they've been a visiting team at a regional.
Yeah.
I think it was in Houston back in 2014. I still have nightmares of the 2015 helicopter series at DBU. And
with the fish in the outfield?
Yes.
When Augie and Pat Casey refused to play?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, their field's a little better now. It's all turf. It's they've got a state-of-the-art drainage system. I was actually touring that some of the renovations with Dan Hefner earlier this year. We're actually in the fall during fall ball. And they've done a really, really nice job of that park. But yeah, it's a great point you bring up about them not playing well on the road. I do think this team's a little different. I think this team, when you look at the veteran leadership in the lineup, Melendez, Murphy Staley, Trey Faltini, I don't think this is a team that's going to go on the road in a regional and just play bad. Now, Arkansas, let's just say they went to Fayetteville. Now, Arkansas may beat them, and they'll be favored. But I don't think this is a team that's going in a regional, and they're just totally, what, the bed.
Well, and you're right.
You're not. They're not going to come in and lose 4-1. They're going to hit the baseball wherever they go. What do you? I mean, we talked when you were here for I think of the Oklahoma State series.
Yep.
And we chopped it up a little bit there. What do you make of I mean, after a while, it wasn't we were talking about a bullpen slump. It's not a slump, it's who they are. And
Mhm.
and it's so shocking to see those talented arms not step to the fore. What do you make of that from an outside perspective? Because I know we talk about it all the time, but from someone who follows the country, what do you make of Texas's struggles in that bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, it's all boiled down to Aaron Nixon. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a guy that was a first team freshman All American last year, and we expect him to be that shutdown bullpen guy for him again this year, and he just hasn't been that guy. There's still time that he can kind of get back on track, but he just has not been that guy. Obviously, they're trying to get creative, moving Lucas Gordon up, putting Tristan in the bullpen, as we saw against West Virginia. One outing, good. The next outing, not so great. So maybe we're finding out that Tristan's not good on throwing back-to-back days. So there's certainly a conundrum there in Austin and what they want to do with their bullpen. I'll say this. Obviously, we were going to get with Pete on the front end of the rotation. He's probably going to win your first game of regional. I've been very encouraged with Lucas Gordon as of late. He threw well against Oklahoma State, threw really well against West Virginia. So you've kind of fixed those issues. So now I'm just very intrigued to see what David and what Sean Allen have cooked up for the bullpen because, Stevens, as we mentioned a second ago, I'm not real sure what to expect. I do like Luke Harrison. I just like his demeanor out there. He never seems too high or too low. So he's a guy I think I would rely on down the stretch. I mean, honestly, I've said since day one, I would like to see him actually be in the rotation. Like, I get it. It's not overwhelming stuff, but you know what he does? He pounds the zone. He keeps the ball low in the zone. He's got a great head on his shoulders. And in a ballpark like the Dish, like he fits in perfectly with that. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I mean, they're going to have to figure it out. But I guess the saving grace here for Texas is we're 3 weeks away from the postseason or 4 weeks away from the postseason. And there's still a lot of teams out there trying to figure it out on the mound. I mean, I just talked about A&M, LSU, TCU, Riley Cornelio's out with a forearm injury. Austin Crowe has struggled on the front end. So, like, TCU still trying to figure it out. So, I mean, there are a lot of teams in similar situations. So that may be the saving grace here.
Yeah, you're right. And Tristan Stevens, I think they're 0-6 in his last 6 Big 12 starts, and he just has not been good.
I mean, the problem with Tristan is just his margin for error is very minimal. I mean, you look back at his outing at Shriners, and like the command was just pinpoint. And when his command's not pinpoint, he's running the mill stuff. I mean, it's 90, 93. He might bump a 94 if he's mad. And the secondary stuff's just okay. So he has to command extremely well. And when he hasn't commanded extremely well, he's gotten hit.
And I wonder too, guys, if David Pierce might be tempted, they go in some Arkansas or wherever as a 2 seed, would you maybe be tempted to put Lucas Gordon on the mound and hopefully get by with him and your offense? And then you got Pete Hansen against Arkansas. Or
I think you gamble. I mean, it depends on your matchup.
In that 2-3 matchup, you start.
Absolutely. I think if you're Texas and the state of your pitching staff is what it is as of, May 11th, I think you gamble. I think you have to. Because I don't know about you, and no disrespect to Lucas Gordon, but, like, I'm not relying on Lucas Gordon to beat Arkansas on a Saturday night at Baum.
Right. I totally agree.
I just love having this is when college baseball gets.
Oh, it's the best.
We start breaking down.
It's a lot of fun, isn't
it? That's when it gets fun, and you just want. All right, he said he's going to start this guy, and then you look up sometimes, and the Friday night starters rolling in there in the 7th inning because you gotta have that first one. Yeah,
I'm just excited to see. Like, I'm just really interested to see, like, what this team does down the stretch. Like, I don't really know what to expect. And, we talked earlier about, the mindset of this team, but I kind of go back to the Super last year a little bit to when South Florida, when Drew Brutcher hit that bomb in the 9th. Like, for a lot of teams in college baseball, I mean, look at Arkansas, the way they handled that bomb. Like, they were against NC State, the bottom of the inning, they were just done. Like, the next inning,
weren't you at the Dish? Weren't we watching that?
I was. We watched that. We watched the Arkansas game together. But what happens, South Florida hits that bomb, and what's Texas do? Like, they walk back in the dugout, like nothing happened. They go out there, they win the game. So, like, anytime I start to doubt these guys, I start to think about, like, that moment and go, like, maybe I should have a little more faith in the postseason than I do right now.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. You mentioned the Aggies; they've kind of been on a heater.
Yeah.
They've won 6 out of 8 series. Said and they've won series at LSU, at Georgia, at Vandy. They lost at Auburn, but I think a couple of close games there. So
Yeah, they
Schottenhagel,
lost in the ninth inning in one of the games at Auburn. And what's funny, just to give you an idea of how quickly college baseball can change, and I think you could say the same about football sometimes, especially early in the season versus late in the season, is remember when Texas, pitching staff got bombed by A&M earlier in the year midweek, and we all thought, boy, that's a really bad loss for Texas.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, they're a higher ranked team. So I just think when you look at the job that coaching staff has done, Mike Early, their hitting coach who came from Arizona State. I know Arizona State didn't knock the cover off the ball last year in the Austin Regional against Fairfield, but he did a really nice job of that offense over the last few years. I'll be honest with you, like, I feel like he's done a miraculous job at their offense. I mean, they've got guys who are hitting like 220 last year that are hitting 320, 330 with double-digit bombs this year. So he's done a great job, but they've got a guy in their Friday role in Nathan Detmer, who will probably be a first-round pick next year. Nate Yeske, who came from Oregon State and Arizona and now to A&M, one of the brighter pitching minds in the country. He's done a great job with him. He's up to 97 with a big-time slider. But really, after that, it's scary for them when it comes to pitching. So it's all going to be about matchups in the postseason.
Yeah, and also nationally, I don't know, could this be the year a sleeper like Virginia Tech comes in there and wins the whole thing, maybe?
Absolutely. And, Tennessee is that team that, what's got to make Texas fans sick is, like, Texas absolutely controlled Tennessee. They won that game, 7-2.
Right.
So it kind of gives you an idea of, like, where this team could be if Tanner Witt was healthy. But, I mean, there's a lot of teams that have dealt with injuries. But, I think when you look around the country, Tennessee is a team that, like, right now seems like the sure bet. But it's been since 2001 that the number one national seed has won the national championship. That was Miami in 2001, I believe, against LSU.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's insane. 2001.
That's nuts.
It's just
crazy.
hard. Like,
It's baseball.
hard to deal with having the target on your back, and we kind of saw, a little opening in the armor last week when they lost 2 out of 3 to Kentucky, who's not a very good team. They lost 2 or 3 at Kentucky, so all of a sudden Tennessee teams can play to now go, you know what, these guys can be beaten 2 out of 3. So I think that's a different feeling. I think outside of Virginia Tech, in terms of teams that you wouldn't expect in baseball to get to Omaha that could, Gonzaga is really, really interesting. They're an interesting story this year. They got 3 big-time starters. Gabe Hughes will be a first-round pick on Friday. Will Kentner, who's expected to be back from an injury, is a top 2 or 3 talented arm. And they've got a kid by the name of Tristan Vierling on Sunday, who's also up to 95, 96. So, I mean, they swept Oklahoma State in Stillwater, and they would be a really tough out. They're also just very battle-hardened. This is a team that just lost one of their assistant coaches a couple weeks ago to stage 4 cancer. So they've been through a lot, man. They've been through some hell, and they're still a top 16 team. So Gonzaga, and then UConn, Jim Penders. I believe he was the cousin of Tom Penders, if I'm not mistaken. His brother Rob used to coach down at, was it St. Ed's, right?
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so Jim's done a great job at UConn. They're right back in the hunt. They're a top 16 team as well. So those are some sleepers for you. Southern Miss, I'd throw in there. And Maryland. Maryland is a team that right now would host. Rob Vaughn's done a tremendous job at Maryland.
I love that about college baseball and how some of these, like Virginia Tech.
No doubt.
When's the last time Virginia Tech competed this well?
So I'll say this about college baseball. Yeah, I mean, the last time Virginia Tech was this good was Pete Hughes last year there when they hosted. And Oklahoma went there and I believe won that regional, and then the next year hired Pete Hughes.
Hired Pete.
But, the thing about college baseball, what's really interesting, and this is all going to change, when the transformation committee lists caps and things like that on scholarships and coaches more than likely at the end of the year. But the thing that's interesting about college baseball is what a lot of programs have realized. Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss have mastered this over the last few years. What they've realized, and Coastal's actually decent in football, but what they've realized is, like, hey, we're never going to compete with Alabama or, Florida or LSU or whoever in football. So what we're going to do, we're going to put our money into a sport that gets a lot of national recognition on ESPN. Obviously, it's not college basketball, but we're going to give our money to a sport that gets a lot of recognition on ESPN and places like that. And we're going to put our money into a sport that's partial scholarship. And you know what? If we put a little bit of money towards this program, we can win. And if we build a nice facility, we can absolutely win. So a lot of these mid-major programs have figured that out, and it's paid dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think they will lift the scholarships? Will they make it unlimited? Could they do that, Kendall?
Is it still 11.7, Kendall?
11.7, yeah.
Yeah, so right now it's 11.7. The transformation committee, actually, Ross Dellinger from SI had a story about this a week ago, and then Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic had like a follow-up today on The Athletic. You can check that out. But so essentially what they want to do, and I've heard this is going to happen, like it's not this might happen, this is happening in the next year, is the conferences would dictate how many scholarships or partial scholarship sports get.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Big 12 decided, well, I'll say the SEC just because UT is going to the SEC. But if the SEC decides they want to give 20 full scholarships and then 7 partials for baseball, which, by the way, I'm hearing through the grapevine is probably the framework they want to use, and the Big 12 doesn't want to do that, then the Big 12 doesn't have to do that. But guess what? The SEC can do that.
And,
coaches, if Texas wants to hire Troy Tulowitzki, hire Greg Swindell as a second pitching guy that just goes to the ballpark and coaches pitchers all day, they can do it. Like there's no cap.
Wow.
So I love it. I mean, I think, the transformation committee's whole thing is, if our goal in college athletics is to improve and create a perfect experience for the student athlete, then why would we ever tell a school they can't get more scholarships? Or why would we tell the school or tell a player they can't get more instruction?
The only thing I would throw out as a caveat is that, do you want a level playing field? In basketball, do you want a Butler to get to the Final Four or VCU? And would that preclude that from happening? I want Virginia Tech to have a chance to get to Omaha. I don't want all SEC teams. Is that fair?
It's fair, and I think it's certainly founded. I do think that college baseball in 2024 will end up being, by the time the UTs and the SEC, I think college baseball will have 2 divisions at the Division I level.
Wow.
I think what you'll have is, it won't be like football where there's limited number of teams, but I think there'll be 180, 205 Division I baseball teams that are playing Texas and Texas A&M and schools like that, which honestly is the way it should be.
That makes sense.
I mean, at the end of the day, and again, this is no disrespect for these programs, but at the end of the day, like, why is Albany or why is, let's just say, St. Peter's, to give you, I know they had the basketball run, but like baseball, one of the worst programs in the country, their head coach makes like $17,000 a year. Why in the world are we putting these programs in position to compete against Texas in baseball? It makes no sense. So go put them in a division where they might actually be able to compete a little bit.
You want a level playing field for those that want to be on that level playing field.
Yeah.
Amen. Exactly.
What would they do with the the D2 teams that have their own College World Series, I guess?
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'd be unfortunate, but I mean, I guess you could try to do it in Omaha the week before or something, but man, that thing would be chewed up.
It's too big. That stadium's probably going to be too big for the D2 fan bases.
Yeah, and you would burn out local fans for the actual big World Series.
It won't be in Omaha. It won't be.
No, not at all.
No. The last question I got for you, Kendall, is Ivan Melendez the National Player of the Year?
It would be, for me, it would be him or Cooper Jerpy at Oregon State. I mean, obviously, when you look at Ivan and the job that he's done this year, it's kind of funny to think back. When he turned down the Marlins, that was a big storyline. I was kind of like, well, that's huge for them, and I expect him to have a good year. I expect him to have a really good year. I'm not sure I expect him to have this good of a year.
Right.
He's just been incredible. He's carried that team on his shoulders. He's been consistent. He's getting on base. He's hitting with power. Every single box that you want checked for a premier hitter in college baseball or hitter in any level of baseball, he has checked those boxes. With that said, Cooper Jerpy at Oregon State would be a really solid pick too. I mean, you're talking about a guy, a left-handed pitcher, who would be a first-round pick. Guys, so far this year, 120 strikeouts, 14 walks, and 73 and 2/3 innings.
Wow.
For the number 2 team in college baseball. So I think there's your competition, I think, if you're Ivan Melendez.
Could he be a first-round draft pick this year, Ivan?
Melendez?
Yeah.
Probably not. I mean, I think there's still – I mean, I'll say this. There's still a lot of scouts that look at his first base play and go, I have a lot of question marks. Honestly, like, I've seen him play first base, and, like, yeah, there's some times that it's not that pretty. But I tell you what, I've seen him pick some balls from Trey at short or balls from third that, like, very few guys can pick.
He's been
And
good.
so I've actually seen all I need to see from him at first base.
Yeah, and I was very impressed with his play over there. I was wondering, I was like, he doesn't move great, but man, he's picked it over there pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, who cares if you move great as long as you
Yeah.
make, as long as you consistently make the play.
Yeah, catch the ball.
Exactly right. Kendall, man, it's a pleasure. We're going to be reading your stuff. Check him out at d1baseball.com. Follow him on Twitter at Kendal Rogers. We'll do it again, hopefully
Yeah, let's do
during
it.
the playoffs, during the postseason tournament. We'll have you on for another segment. We appreciate the knowledge drop today, brother.
You got it. Always good to talk to a fellow brother from East Texas over here.
There
Great
you
stuff,
go.
kid.
Got
Thanks.
it, Texas. Take care, brother.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.